will the future of humanity be determined by a handful of billionaires who have developed AI to become even richer and more powerful than they are. That is the fundamental choice before us.
We got a video from Bernie Sanders. He's got a new bill. It says, I will soon be introducing a bill to give the public a 50% ownership stake in the largest AI companies in America. Now, there's a couple interesting things there, like, okay, what threshold do you have for the largest? What does that say to smaller AI companies as they grow? Are they going to work into the threshold where all of a sudden the government's got control over them? Like, what are we going to do then? Give the public a 50% ownership stake? No, you're talking about the U.S. government getting a 50% ownership stake. And that's a wild thing for Democrats and socialists to do, to even talk about doing or support doing while Donald Trump is the president. Like that, Hitler is in charge of America right now, and you want him to have 50% ownership stake and control over AI?
Also,
really?
What does this mean for venture capital? What does this mean for investments? What does this mean for founders? I mean, you're taking 50% of the company. Look at the dilution is going to be massive.
It's going to be bad.
Like, typically when you raise money, you are giving up somewhere between 15 to 20% of your company, which dilutes everyone else who's on the cap table, by the way. So if you're giving up 50% ownership stake in your company, for what? Is he saying that they're going to make an investment into it for the 50%, or they're just going to get 50%?
No, he literally says that they are going to tax.
Exactly.
But they're not going to take money. They're going to tax away 50% of the stock in these companies, which honestly, first off, I don't think would even be legal. I think it would require like a new constitutional amendment essentially to do this. That's not something that would pass. We're in a situation now where people hate AI data centers. Everyone's so worried about that. Bernie wanted the AI moratorium. Now he's like, no, I found a way to make it better. We'll just own 50% of it and it's fine after that. It's so crazy too that it's always after the thing is built and is super valuable and is working that these freaking socialists come in and want to take half of it. Like all these people weren't fighting to try and take 50% ownership and, well, I don't know, what's an AI company that was worth nothing a couple of years ago, a lot of them.
Almost all of them.
This stuff has moved really quick. 4 or 5 years ago when this whole idea was spinning up and was like, oh, this is dumb. This stuff doesn't make any sense. Now that it's been made very valuable and is getting used a lot, they're like, oh, okay, we should own half of that thing. No, it would totally destroy that market. It would kill AI. It would kill investment. It would kill investment overall. Like they're just talking about AI right now. What's the next thing that's going to be transformational for America that then we've said the government can just tax away 50% ownership of?
Quantum computing would be a good one right now. There's a lot of smaller startup quantum computing companies.
They could just jump in on that.
Why aren't they wanting to take 50% of those yet?
They want to do it after all the a bunch of people have lost money and then a bunch of people have made money, and they can villainize them enough to the public to get public support for doing that kind of thing. Here's Bernie's video. Let's listen.
Hey, everybody. Thanks very much for joining me. I probably don't need to tell you that artificial intelligence will almost certainly be the most transformational technology in the history of the world. It will profoundly affect the lives of every man, woman, and child in our country and, in fact, throughout the world. It is already bringing significant changes to our economy, our democracy, our emotional well-being, our environment, and how we educate and raise our kids. There is also a very real fear that as AI becomes smarter than human beings, it could eventually function independent of human control with potentially catastrophic consequences.
Everything I just heard is a reason that I want the government to have no involvement with it whatsoever.
Right.
Like you're talking about turning this into a real security risk for Americans with all that stuff he just mentioned by having the government get involved in that thing. I mean, really? Is that what you want? It's like, oh, it's transforming our democracy and the way we take care of our children. And whoever won the last election should control it. Come on, man. That's ridiculous.
Well, just 50%.
Just 50%.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. Here's a little more.
The question is not whether AI will change the world. It will. The question is who will own and control that future, who will benefit from it, and who will be hurt by it. Will AI be used to make life better for working families?
Yes.
Will it help us eliminate poverty, extend life expectancies, and help us solve the climate crisis?
Oh, we still have the climate crisis.
It's kicking up again. Yeah, we're getting close.
Okay.
Getting close to the climate crisis. Like all the big innovations and changes, like look at going from typewriters and slide rules, whatever, to computers, you know? Now, some people got very rich creating that stuff, you know? A lot of people made a lot of money. Big companies still exist today. Also, fundamentally changed the lives and probably, even though we can all name a bunch of stuff that we don't like about, you know, this digital age that we live in, probably overall made the standard of living better. Just being honest.
It made everyone richer.
It made everyone richer. Even though some people got very rich, you didn't have to create a law that said this new technology has to make everyone better off. No, actually, that's what gave it so much value in the first place. Like if you're creating a technology that is going to come here and destroy humanity, there's not a lot of people forking over money for that kind of thing. That's the kind of stuff governments do. You know, they got to take your money to build those kind of things. Yeah. But
what's interesting is I heard someone say this on a podcast. I think it was Andreessen who was on the Joe Rogan show. He was talking to Joe Rogan about, obviously he's a massive VC. Andreessen's one of the biggest venture capital firms. They have over 1,000 companies they're invested in. They deploy billions of dollars in capital. He was telling Joe Rogan, it's like, look, all you have to do is compare it to current. You could just compare the United States to current European countries who have some of these policies instituted that Bernie Sanders advocates for, that AOC advocates for. Countries like Estonia and others, where once you make $60,000 plus, most of your income is taxed away to fund these programs. And so what do people do? What does it incentivize them to do? It incentivizes them to stop producing or going past whatever threshold gets them to, they stop at $59,000. They try to make the max they can before all of it gets taken away in taxes, which, by the way, stifles innovation and all sorts of things because people don't want to be rich in those countries. They would rather move to America or somewhere else. And then, by the way, you compare their average level of living standards to the United States. And you can see that even in some of these countries that have these, drastic policies that Bernie and AOC advocate for, their average standard of living is less than that of our worst U.S. state. People in Mississippi are richer than these countries that institute these types of policies. You can do the comparison today.
Mm-hmm.
It exists.
Well, they just didn't do it the right way, though.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's a good argument, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's always the problem with, which we're going to do today. And it's a valuable thing to do, and it's important to do. Not only are these policies terrible and will lead to worse lives for the most amount of people, they're also immoral. It's also just flat out wrong for the government to come in and take half of the ownership in something that someone else created. It's wrong for them to take anything through force from anyone and decide to give it to other people. And so while we'll say, well, this isn't how this country did it and it was bad, and this country did it and it was bad, they'll say, well, we're going to do it better than those countries did. And unfortunately, like, that's an argument that a lot of people are going to buy into and follow along with. Also, it's immoral to do, and no one should ever do it. Even if you could make the case that it would work perfectly, you still shouldn't do it because it's the wrong thing to do. All right, here's a little bit more of Bernie.
will the future of humanity be determined by a handful of billionaires who have developed AI to become even richer and more powerful than they are. That is the fundamental choice before us. And let us be clear. AI was not created out of thin air. The foundation of AI is our collective human intelligence. Let me repeat that. The foundation of AI is our collective human intelligence. Our books, songs, artwork, journalism, computer code, scientific research, videos, conversations, images, and ideas spanning generations. As Sam Altman himself acknowledged, AI...
So he's making the case here that, obviously, as he says over and over again, AI is based on our collective human intelligence. That is the foundation of AI. To which I would say, what the hell are you talking about, dude? He's got to make this case because, for instance, when he's going to talk about these sovereign wealth funds and stuff like that, you got to make an argument that, like, there's a collective, say, governments will charge like land use royalties to oil companies, and they'll pay the government, or they'll make them government-owned corporations, stuff like that. And so he's trying to say, well, the resource that they're using is actually collective human knowledge, all the things that we've created. To which I would say all of that stuff already exists. It's already out there in the public domain. And making this argument is making the argument that you could take ownership of anything and that no one actually owns anything at all. There's not anything that any of us are going to go do that whose foundation is not collective human knowledge of that thing that we're about to go do. You know, it's not like just firsthand knowledge that you learned, you know, okay, well, I'm not going to touch that stove because I touched it when I was a kid and it was hot. But what about this fire? I've never put my hand in a fire before. I'm going to go do that. Oh, what collective human knowledge says that that's a bad idea. People have learned this throughout the years, other people, not me.
Or if you create a car.
Yeah.
You know, somebody already invented a car.
Yeah.
So what, are you going to use their knowledge?
What are we doing right now? You think we're, you know, some of the things we say are purely original, or at least we think they are, but really we're just LLMs regurgitating things that we've heard over the collective years that Charlie and I have been listening to and reading things and coming up with some of our own ideas as we go as well. It's all based on, so no one owns anything then, right? No one.
That's the libertarian argument.
Oh, now you switched over the IP.
There you go.
What
yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so libertarian, like anti-IP people are on Bernie's side in this scenario.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, no, but he's saying that we all own it. Libertarians are saying that. I don't know. Let's go a little bit further.
Our models were trained on our, quote, collective experience, knowledge, and learnings of humanity, end quote. The reality is that big tech oligarchs have fed this knowledge into their AI models without permission, acknowledgement, or compensation. In other words, the creative work of millions and hundreds of millions of people has been stolen by the wealthiest people in the world. The time has come to reclaim what was stolen from us. Since AI is built on the collective knowledge of humanity, the wealth it generates must benefit humanity, not just Elon Musk.
Now, isn't this an argument for collectivizing this and giving it back to people who have published books and articles and stuff like that? You know,
by the way,
I haven't published any books, so why do I have a collective ownership of this thing?
By the way, they already have. Like they've been found in violation of some copyright, and they paid the fines. Mm-hmm. It was worth it to them, by the way. Especially, I think OpenAI trained most of their models on like all the books in existence, which obviously were copyright.
They still
copywritten, and have paid some fines to those copyright owners for, training the models on it. You can look that up.
You can tell me if it's true or not. But like, I put an article in the ChatGPT last night, and it said that there was a paywall, and I couldn't go to the article. Did they go past paywalls still? I mean, I guess they can, if it's in Google they can maybe scrape it and they find it, without the paywall. I guess they can get around that.
I meant when they were training the models.
Yeah.
They didn't have any paywalls.
They just went through everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, here's a little more.
But you could tell the model to pull it from one of the websites that has the read-only version.
Okay, I got you.
It'll likely do that.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, and other billionaires, or the venture capitalists and Wall Street firms who see AI as the next great wealth extracting machine. And that is
what wealth is being extracted.
I don't know.
What is he taught? It's new. These people. There's how many times does someone have to explain like a fixed pie fallacy to this guy? Honestly, I've explained it so many times. I think other people aren't able to explain it anymore. I've taken all the times available to explain the fixed pie fallacy. That was a fixed pie fallacy joke, actually. So you can keep explaining it, actually. Sorry. That was, too far. It's not wealth that has been extracted. This is new investment money. And yeah, there's people paying for Claude and ChatGPT and stuff like that. But I don't know if any of those companies are profitable. Highly doubt any of them are profitable, honestly. Like on the line, you look at all the money that's been poured into it and what they've made back so far. They might be profitable on like an operating basis.
They're not profitable yet.
And so like, where's the wealth getting extracted from? It's people with their money from other stuff coming in and investing in these companies, which is the part that you want to destroy. He literally wants to destroy all the wealth. He's going to act like he's going to distribute this wealth to people. As soon as they do this, the wealth is gone. It's not there anymore to even distribute. And then they're just going to destroy the new technology in the first place, which some people might be okay with. But like yesterday's show, you do also have to remember that this is not the only country in the world, and this technology is pretty crazy, and they are going to create the machines to destroy humanity, and those better be made in America, damn it.
That way we at least get some control.
Yeah.
By the way, this it will make everyone wealthier.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are new companies spinning up every hour, made possible by AI, by the way. Like prior to that, there was a limited number of people who could actually create products or services that people wanted. And now anybody with an idea has, it's democratized.
God, you can
creation.
You can just put the idea into the thing. You don't have to know anything else, Pat. Here's my idea. And if it's ChatGPT, you'd be like, great idea. That's great. I don't know anyone that hasn't thought about that before. But like Claude will tell you the truth, Claude will be like, come on, man, that's ridiculous. You're not going to hit any kind of market with this.
Depends on what prompt you give it.
And then be like, hey, how do I get this idea going? And like, well, you do this, this, and this. And you'd be like, hey, can you help me with that?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, sure. Here's how I would do that. And you'd be like, okay, let's do it. And then that's all you got to do. You just come to it with an idea and you can have a company in like a week,
Literally.
Pretty quick. So
it'll tell you how to file it and everything.
A little more of the video here.
That's why in the coming weeks, I will introduce the American AI Sovereign Wealth Fund Act. This legislation would give the public a direct ownership stake in the largest AI companies in America through a one-time...
By the way, the public direct ownership stake, you're not going to get a piece of paper in the mail that says you've got a direct ownership stake.
Here's some of your shares.
Anthropic. Here's how many shares you have.
Yeah.
No, the public is going to be whoever's in control of the government at that time.
Yeah.
Like that's just what it's going to be.
By the way, this is just a one-time thing.
Oh, one time. Yeah. They're just going to do that. And only with AI. They're not going to do this with any other new idea or innovation that comes out that could potentially be very valuable. Yeah. That's it.
50% tax, not on profits, but on stock. It would do two extremely critical things.
Number one,
First,
destroy the company.
It would give the American people a direct role in determining the future of this technology.
As long as the person you want to win wins office of the president, and then you have a direct role, as long as that president follows through on whatever their campaign promises were on that thing.
No longer would the future of AI be dictated by a handful of big tech oligarchs while the rest of the world sits back and watches them do what they want. Secondly, it would guarantee that the trillions potentially created by AI are used to improve the lives of all of us, not simply to make the richest people on earth even richer. And I have to tell you, this is not an original idea.
Oh, you stole
OpenAI
this.
has
I'm taking half his idea.
proposed creating a public wealth fund to give every citizen a stake in AI-driven economic growth. Anthropic
This is where he really, really starts lying. The first part was just really, really bad ideas that would like destroy America and humanity. But the rest of this is just him lying about stuff. Like OpenAI has proposed a sovereign wealth fund. Do you think they were like, you know what? I think the government should seize half of our company. No, they were probably like, you know what? I think theirs was more, a little less sinister, but still very corrupt. They're like, you know, the government should actually take money and create an investment fund and invest into it and then potentially pay out dividends to people. Like that's what they should do. Not take half the company and then potentially pay out dividends afterwards.
OpenAI has proposed creating a public wealth fund to give every citizen a stake in AI-driven economic growth. Anthropic has proposed national sovereign wealth funds with stakes in AI. Elon Musk has said direct federal payments are the best response to AI-driven unemployment. Over 100 sovereign wealth funds already exist worldwide. Norway used its oil wealth to create a $2 trillion public fund. Alaska created a sovereign wealth fund that has paid dividends directly to residents for decades. Every year, people in Alaska get a piece of the action from their oil revenue. Even
So when he talks about Norway and Alaska, it's important to mention. Remember, I told you he was just going to lie about stuff. He wants to seize half the companies and do this sovereign wealth fund thing. Norway, it is true that they take like the land use royalties that they get from oil companies, and some of it goes into a sovereign wealth fund, and then they buy on a marketplace investments into different companies. Okay, they don't and they don't get more than 1% ownership in any of these companies, and it's traded on the market through like a stock portfolio, like an investment portfolio of them buying in the companies. They're not coming in and taking half the company or anything like that. That's not what's happening. Same thing with Alaska. They get royalties off of the land use from the oil companies, goes into a fund, they invest it, people get paid out dividends from the whole thing. That's not what Bernie is talking about.
It's not the same thing
at all. But he's going to say, oh, this is 100 wealth funds like this exist all over the place. Norway, even Alaska, U.S. state. It's not the same thing at all. Not one bit. He's just lying straight through his scraggly teeth right now.
President Trump has proposed establishing a United States sovereign wealth fund. The billions, if not trillions, generated by this legislation would provide direct payments to the American people and help guarantee health care, education, and housing as human rights. The principle is quite simple. When a public resource generates wealth, the public should share in that wealth. Artificial intelligence is being built on a public resource far more valuable than oil. It is the accumulated knowledge, creativity, and labor of all of humanity. Bottom line, the future of AI must not be decided behind closed doors in Silicon Valley. It must not be dictated.
It should be decided behind closed doors at the White House or behind closed doors at the Capitol.
in the Senate.
That's where this should happen. God bless. And I think there's just as easily an argument that he is proposing this because he knows it would destroy AI. Like that, he can get a lot of people on board with it, and this would just sort of kill the whole thing in the U.S.